In the preliminary investigation report of Air India AI 171, there have been some discoveries that have created a new mystery in the world of aviation. Just a few seconds before the crash, who had switched off the fuel switches of both the engines from the run position to the cut-off position? When the fuel was cut off and both the engines started to stall, one pilot asked why the fuel was cut off, to which the other pilot replied, "I didn't do it." What was the reason that at such a critical time of take-off, not one, but both the fuel switches of the engines were switched off? Was there any malfunction in the switches? Did the pilot do it on purpose, or was it the result of a malfunction? There have been other similar accidents in history in which the pilot deliberately committed suicide. What is common between them and AI 171? Today we will go deep and try to understand this issue. Welcome to this Mind Mirror video again, and if you are new on this channel, like and subscribe so that our new video can reach you as soon as possible. So let's go to the video. Viewers, on the morning of June 12, 2025, it was a routine day at Ahmedabad International Airport. There was a slight heat in the air and the sky was absolutely clear. Some planes were standing at the terminal onboarding passengers. Some were in the taxi phase, while on the runway, every 5 minutes, a plane was landing or taking off. In the midst of this crowd, there was also a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner of Air India, whose tail number was VTNB, while the flight number was AI 171. This plane came to Ahmedabad from Delhi 2 hours ago today, and now it was ready to go to London from Ahmedabad. No one knew that after a few moments, this Dreamliner would leave a mystery in the world of headlines and aviation. Captain Sumit Sabharwal, 56 years old, was present in the cockpit, whose total flying experience is said to be 15,600 hours, of which 8,200 hours he achieved on this Boeing 787. While the co-pilot, who is also called the first officer, was 32-year-old Clive Gunder, whose total experience is 3,400 hours, and he had flown the Boeing 787 a total of 128 hours. The report states that both pilots passed the breath analyzer test about 5 hours before the flight and were found to be absolutely perfect for the flight. The same aircraft VTM arrived in Ahmedabad from Delhi while operating flight AI 423. There was a small technical issue in the last flight, which the aircraft maintenance engineer troubleshooted and cleared. Now this plane was ready for its next flight. There were a total of 230 passengers in flight AI 171. According to the investigation report, 54,200 kg of fuel was filled in the aircraft, and its take-off weight was 13,400 kg, which is completely normal for a Boeing 787. There were no signs of any dangerous objects in the aircraft. Everything was as usual. After boarding, according to the recordings of the air traffic control tower, the aircraft asked for permission to push back and start from the terminal. The ATC instructed the aircraft to line up at runway 23. At that time, the wind speed was 6 knots, i.e. about 11 km per hour. The weather was absolutely clear, and the visibility was recorded at 6,000 meters. This means that everything was perfect for a normal takeoff. After getting permission for takeoff, the pilot started speeding up by raising the thrust lever. Remember that the takeoff co-pilot Clive Cunder was doing this flight while Captain Sumit's role was only to monitor. According to the enhanced airborne flight recorder data, the aircraft achieved V1 speed, a speed of 153 knots or 283 km per hour, after which it is not possible to abort the takeoff. After 2 seconds, the aircraft also achieved VR speed, which is 155 knots, and then the aircraft took off. So far, everything was normal. Even in CCTV footage, everything looks normal till the liftoff, but what happened after that changed everything. After about 3 seconds, the aircraft also achieved a speed of 180 knots, which means that even after 3 seconds of takeoff, the engine was producing thrust. With the help of the enhanced airborne flight recorder, the fuel cut-off switches of engine 1 and engine 2 changed from the run position to the cut-off position with a delay of just 1 second. The fuel supply of the engine was now cut off, and the N1 and N2 values began to drop rapidly. That is, the thrust of the engine began to decrease rapidly. In the cockpit voice recorder, which records all the sounds of the cockpit, it was heard that at this very point a pilot asked, "Why did you cut the fuel switch?" And the next person said, "I didn't do it." The investigation team still did not know which pilot asked this question and which pilot answered. Even in CCTV footage, it was seen that the ram air turbine was deployed immediately after the liftoff, which is also called RAT in short. It is an emergency power source that automatically deploys when the engine is shut down. This power is used to run the main electrical system of the aircraft. The deployment of RAT is a sign that something unusual had happened on the aircraft. In the footage, it was also seen that the aircraft was losing its altitude rapidly, and this is also proven by the EFO data, because at that time, the N2 values of both the engines also decreased from their minimum ideal speed. A distress signal of Mayday was recorded in the ATC recordings. When the ATC asked for a call sign, there was no answer from the front. In addition, the ATC saw the aircraft crashing outside the airport boundary, and the emergency response was activated immediately. The aircraft collided with a building chimney of the Army Medical Corps 1,600 meters away in the direction of runway 23, and then collided with the BJ Medical College hostel. The entire debris spread from the first impact point to an area of about 1,000 feet long and 400 feet wide. In this incident, 12 crew members and 229 passengers lost their lives, while 19 people on the ground were also affected by this incident. Only one passenger was able to escape somehow due to being naturally sitting near the emergency exit. Everything is written in detail in this initial investigation report of 15 pages. As after the crash, a flap handle assembly was found from Malwa, which was present in a 5-degree flap position, which is a normal take-off flap setting. And this was also confirmed by the EFO data. The landing gear lever was found in the down position, and the thrust lever was certainly quite burnt, but it was in the forward position until the crash. while the most important thing was that the fuel control switches were found in the run position. That is, before the crash, the pilots had turned on the fuel switch again. Now, these fuel switches are normally designed in such a way that only a human being can close or open them. A locking mechanism is given on the left and right of both the switches. The function of this locking mechanism is to prevent the switch from accidentally turning on or off. Whenever the pilot has to open the engine fuel, it is necessary to use both hands of the pilot. The lock is pushed with one hand, and the switch is pulled up or down with the other hand. And this is the most surprising thing, because no one can turn on or off the fuel switch with one hand. Now, if the switch was not closed by the pilot, as heard in the cockpit voice recorder, then who did it? And if this was done by mistake, then the question is, how did both the switches close by mistake, that two one after the other? In the investigation report, it was also found that both the fuel switches were closed by 1 second, which seems to be a normal human intervention. Later, these two switches were turned on again, but by then it was too late. According to the investigation report, the fuel cut-off and resupply for engine 1 was about 10 seconds, and for engine 2, the fuel cut-off and resupply was about 14 seconds. Evidence of this is also found that both the engines started producing thrust again, but crashed at the same time. Now, the biggest mystery here is that the flight AI-171 was absolutely perfect till takeoff. Everything was normal from the engine to the fuel filled in it. The investigation team checked the fuel samples of the fuel tanker with which the AI-171 was refueled in the lab, but found nothing wrong with it. If everything was perfect, then why were the fuel switches deliberately closed? Or was their locking mechanism broken? Another important thing is also mentioned in the report, and that is that the FAA issued a special airworthiness information bulletin in 2018 in which the possibility of the fuel control switch locking feature was mentioned. That is, the danger of the fuel switch locking feature was definitely there somewhere in the aviation industry. This bulletin, which is also called SABE, was issued on the complaint of Boeing 737 aircraft operators. This means that this issue has already been reported in some Boeing 737 aircrafts. The fuel control switch design, which also includes a locking feature, is the same as on different Boeing airplane models, which also includes part number 4TL 8373D. And the same part was used in the Air India flight AI-171 aircraft VTAN-B. The FAA had warned 7 years ago that some fuel control switch locks have been installed in a disengaged state. Air India skipped this inspection because it was not mandatory, but it was just an advice from the FAA. But on the other hand, if it is assumed that the aircraft's fuel switch locking mechanism was also broken and accidentally switched off during takeoff, then how did such a big coincidence happen that both switches stopped one after the other from a 1 second delay? And if the pilot did it on purpose, then there can only be one reason for this, and that is suicide. But was it really suicide or not? In 2015, the co-pilot of the Germanwings Flight 9525 locked the cockpit from inside when the captain went to use the bathroom. The cockpit voice recorder found out that he deliberately hit the plane against the mountains of the Alps. Later, it was found that the co-pilot's mental health record was already bad. In 2013, the captain of the LAM Mozambique Flight 470 manually set the autopilot to 0 feet when the first officer left the cockpit. FDR data confirmed that he did this on purpose and the aircraft crashed. Similarly, in 1999, religious phrases were heard in the cockpit even before the crash of the Egypt Flight 990, and after that the aircraft went into the nose-dive position. According to the Egyptian government, this action of the co-pilot was the result of a mechanical failure, while the FAA considered it a suicide mission. And in 1997, in the Silk Air Flight 185, the pilot first manually shut down the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder and then crashed the aircraft into the nose-dive position. Keeping these incidents in mind, one thing was found common in all these suicidal missions, that the pilot did not respond to the ATC. But in the case of Air India 171, it does not seem like it is being shown as a suicidal mission on social media, at least according to the investigation so far, because the pilot had come to a point and turned on the fuel switches again. If the intention was something else, then they would not have been turned on. Secondly, they were very responsive, and 2 seconds before the crash, they gave the ATC distress signal for Mayday. And thirdly, the aircraft's nose was seen up a few seconds before the crash, and the flight data also confirmed it. That is, they were hoping that the engine would give thrust again, and the aircraft would probably get back up. If this was done on purpose, then what was the point of keeping the elevators in the take-off position? What is your opinion about this? Do let me know in the comments section. I hope you will like and share this video of Mind Mirror. See you in the next great video.